with others was comical. And it was church, and it was after church, and I preached another great sermon. And I found out the reason he liked it, or he certainly said he liked it, is because I shook my leg.
True story.
True story. He liked me the way that I shook my leg. I did a little Elvis Presley, and that was it. We were on our way. So I always wanted to go to Cuba, and I did a few years ago. Loved it. Loved the people. I loved the Cuban folks that we came in contact with in Miami as we passed through there. Loved the food. Loved the culture. Loved everything about it. And eventually, me and my wife went. We were there for about 8 days and loved it. But I started to talk to him about my desires all of these years to want to go to Cuba. And so I said, maybe we can go to Cuba together. He said, well, that would be good. It was right after church. And of course, I was feeling holy and sanctified, and, all of that kind of stuff. And so he said to me, yes, we can go and we can drink beer. And I was like, I don't know if I ought to say yes or no. I just got to church. I said, well, I don't really like the taste of liquor or beer. He said, that's okay. He said, you come to Cuba, and this way there'll be more beer for me. I thought, now there's a saint.
Always giving.
The Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that? It's a what?
It is appointed unto man once to die. He kept his appointment. That's one of those appointments you can't put off. I have several doctors that I see, and through all of this stuff that's been happening, I put them off and put them off and put them off. That's one you can't. There's an appointed time. And he kept his appointment. Was this? Was it that? Did somebody make a mistake? Was it old age? What was it? It was an appointment that he kept. I heard a story. I had an opportunity many years ago. I was in town for about 2 years, and there was a lady that started to come to church. She was a nurse, and she actually lived right down the street from us. And her and her mother came, and we got to know them. And her child got sick. He was 2 years old. And she thought he had croup. She actually took him to the doctor. She said, oh, he just has croup, and do this and do that. Well, it was one of those strains of croup that would actually kill. And she laid there in the bed with her baby. The baby took its last breath. Her mother, who came to church with her, also came running down. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, knocking on our door, and you could tell there was something happening. Somebody was panicking, and she was just beating on our door, and I answered the door, and she told us what happened. So I went to the hospital, and the baby was gone. They could not resuscitate the child. The mother was separated from her father on the way to a divorce. There was a lot of anger between the families. The funeral was up in Largo, and I went there and did the funeral. And I want to tell you something. I did everything I could, other than doing backflips, to attempt to bring some comfort to those people. There were too many things. There were two families that hated one another. His family hated her family family hated his family. But then we have a 2-year-old. When someone is 85, we can say, oh, it was their time. But a baby, I didn't know what to do. When I came home that night, I laid on the bed next to my wife and I sobbed because I watched that child. Back then, you could actually go back there with the doctors, and I did, and I watched them try to resuscitate that child. After preaching, after greeting the people, we went to the gravesite. And an old preacher, I'll never forget his name was Reverend Green. He had a church up there. It was called All People's Tabernacle. It was an interesting name, All People's Tabernacle. he told this story, and I think this is something I need to repeat. Because somewhere along the line, Papi knew about this. And this is a story he told. I asked him to say something because he was part of the family, and he got up and he said, this is what he said. He said, sheep are very skittish. They're afraid to go over turbulent water. If the stream is flowing very fastly, they won't cross over to the other side. It has to be still water. The psalm says he leads us beside still water. Sheep are they're afraid of turbulent water. But the shepherd needed to move the flock from one field to another field because they had eaten all of the grass in one field, but there was this turbulent stream that was flowing. And so the good shepherd, the great shepherd, the shepherd of the flock, you know what he did? He picked up one of the sheep and he carried him on the other side of those turbulent waters. And after a while, the sheep that was all by himself began to bleat, bah, bah, bah. And after a while, one of the other sheep crossed over. And then another one. And then another one. Until eventually the entire flock came to the other side. Let me tell you something. You know what happened in that hospital? The great shepherd took something that he valued and loved. Shepherds love their sheep. And he brought him to the other side. He crossed over the river. Not by mistake and not by sickness. But he crossed to the other side. In the arms of a loving shepherd. We're all going to face this day. I hope, I pray, I tell my wife, when I die, I don't want it over in a day. I want there to be a lot of crying and a lot of laughing, and a lot of eating, maybe some dancing. I'm Italian, some spaghetti and a meatball, some lasagna. I want this to go on and on and on. A good long weekend.
Long weekend.
A long weekend. But when I die, I want to die the death that he died. I want to live the legacy that he lived.
Yes.
Being